See that the recording has started. I'm just scanning to see how many assembly members we have here. Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. I now call to order this work session of the Anchorage Assembly on AO 2021-114, Organization of the Executive Branch. It is Friday, December 3rd, 2021. And we are noticed from 3:10 to 4:10 p.m. today. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Suzanne LaFrance.
Here.
Christopher Constant. Jamie Allard.
Here.
Forrest Dunbar.
Here.
Crystal Kennedy. Cameron Perez Verdia. Pete Peterson.
Present.
Austin Quinn Davidson. Felix Rivera. John Weddleton. And Meg Zalatel. Okay, Madam Chair, there you go.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And I want to note that Mr. Rivera, Mr. Constant, and Ms. Quinn Davidson are attending a conference and will be participating as their schedules allow. Ms. Demboski, I believe you have a presentation. Actually, before you begin, I do want to note for any members of the public that the documents are available on muni.org on the Assembly page. And if you click on the top on Assembly Work Sessions, you can find the documents available. So I'll go now to Ms. Demboski. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you. My name is Amy Demboski. I'm the municipal manager. Joining me today for this presentation, Adam Chombley, Director of Community Development, as well as Josh Duran, Director of Parks and Recreation, Municipal Attorney Patrick Burke, along with Dee Ennis and Blair Christensen from the Department of Law. So hopefully between all of us, we can answer your questions. Madam Chair, is somebody from the clerk's office going to share the presentation?
Ms. Jones, are we able to do that?
We were anticipating that you would share your presentation. Do I need to give you presenter privileges?
That would be wonderful. I have it up on screen so I can walk through it, but I do need a little, I need the go ahead.
And let me just note for the record that we were joined by Ms. Kennedy at 3:12 p.m.
Okay, just let me know when you can see my screen.
We can see your screen.
Okay, perfect.
And
so
Mr. I'm just really sorry, Ms. Demboski. Mr. Weddleton joined at 3:13.
Well, it's great to have you all here. So the point of today's committee work session or assembly work session is to go over the organization that has been presented by Mayor Bronson. This is a typical process for new administrations when they come in to a mayor's office. As long back as I can think, I can't remember of a mayor who didn't reorganize the government. So the point of today's discussion is to go through and explain to everyone how we've organized and answer any questions relating to that. I thought sorry, I'm having issues here. Oh, there we go. I thought the first step might be helpful to go through and just show folks what the last two administrations look like. Under Mayor Sullivan, the organization was pretty straightforward. What you saw is that the mayor has direct reports, typically the municipal attorney, that's standard, the municipal manager, the CFO, and under the Sullivan administration, the HR director was a direct report to the mayor. What you'll notice is most departments fall under the municipal manager. This is pretty standard. If you go back to the charter language is very clear that administration of government is the responsibility of the municipal manager, who then is responsible to the mayor. Under the Berkowitz administration, The organization changed just a little bit, and what you'll see is Mayor Berkowitz created what's called the Economic and Community Development Department. Now, made up of this department, he had pulled the library, parks and recreation, the planning department, development services. These departments that are typically under the municipal manager were broken out into a new department that we refer to as OECD. Now, what you're going to see in the next slide, the Bronson organization, effectively, we've taken the Office of Economic Community and Development and we have eliminated it, and we have replaced it in part with a new department called Community Development. Now, I'm going to get to this in just a minute. I suspect there will be a number of questions about it. But with this, sorry, I'm just toggling between my notes here. Just give me 1 second. The overall concept in the organization of the Bronson administration is to effectively achieve optimal operational workflow and adequate span of control for maximum efficiency and management controls. The two biggest shifts in this administration's organization are the dissolution of the Office of Economic Development that was created under the Berkowitz administration and the movement of departments within OECD to the Office of the Municipal Manager and the newly formed Office of Community Development. Additionally, during SAP implementation, there were a number of payroll corrections that at the time most effectively were addressed by placing payroll as a division within IT. Those payroll correction issues have now been resolved, and we feel it's most effective to return payroll back and under the Human Resources Department. Furthermore, under the Berkowitz administration, because of all the challenges within the SAP implementation, they made that department a direct report to the mayor. This reorganization returns the IT department back and under the chain of command of the municipal manager. Within the municipal manager's office, we are utilizing an existing PCN, the Deputy Municipal Manager PCN. Originally, we considered a working title of Director of Enterprise Services. Sorry, I just have to clear my screen here for a second. But we originally were going to use this PCN as Director of Enterprise Services, but we have since decided to drop that working title, and Ms. Hickel is operating as the Deputy Municipal Manager, so she is within my office. Next slide. Let me just get to that. All right, so here is really, I tried to lay this out as clear as I could for the assembly and for the public. Hopefully this slide is going to be helpful for you. The overall concept in the organization, as I had said, was to try to align operational efficiencies as best as we could, and also make sure that we have adequate spans of control. You notice, again, as I had said, information technology no longer reports to the mayor. Now IT is going to be right here under the municipal manager. Again, the payroll division now is being under the Human Resources Department, but this really is the largest change right here. This is what was formerly known as OECD, the Office of Community and Economic Development. Within this particular office, I've tried to find a really clear way to show everyone where these parts and pieces are going. Historically, cultural, entertainment, arts venues, this is really contract management. This historically has been within the office of the municipal manager, and that's where we're proposing it return. Also, the library and parks and recreation are also being shifted to the Office of the municipal manager's chain of command. And then to the right here, we have the Bronson Organization for Community Development Department. Within that, we have building services, public works, and the real estate department. All right, and don't worry, we'll have plenty of time for questions. I'm just going to give you the basic overview here. So the next slide, I'm going to turn this one over to Adam Trombley. He's the Director of Community Development, and he'll be able to walk you through his department in each division therein.
Hi, Adam Trombley here. Oh, someone have something to say?
Nope, you got it, Adam.
Okay, all right. I just want to address the reason and some of this is going to be a little bit of regurgitation from the assembly meeting, but I think it's important to understand why we've developed it. And we've put basically, there's so much tie-in between what happens in development services, whether it's planning, permitting, in coordination with Public Works, because they do so much construction, which ties into private development, and obviously real estate, which has vacant land, HLB, which has vacant land and developable land. So we felt as though tying all of these departments together would provide easy access, basically all in one location here at 4700. And with me over the top, I'm able to have quick, easy access to everybody here and provide easy coordination between these departments. In regards to development services, really it should be more or less called building safety. And some of the things I wanted to address what goes on in building safety is, these are just to name a few, but we deal with deteriorated properties, we deal with inspections, we deal with right-of-ways, we deal with private development, structural plan review, mechanical plan review, electrical plan review, plumbing plan, mechanical plumbing is the exact same thing. We do code enforcement, code abatement. That all is involved with development services or building safety. Planning, the planning director is responsible for long-term, short-term planning, rezones, variances, community plans, district plans, marijuana conditional use permits, alcohol conditional use permits, all other conditional use permits when it comes to zoning, rezones, Title 21 changes, special projects. They're responsible for staffing the Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals, Planning and Zoning, Board of Adjustment, Plating, and AMATS is tied into planning. So we felt as though those two underneath one development services director coordinating those efforts would be successful. When it comes to Public Works, those are just your typical projects through bonds, grants, federal funds. We felt as though traffic, and I will say one of the things that we've done is we've taken some traffic folks and we've moved them into development services, because there's a tie-in with development services and what happens with traffic as opposed to approving subdivisions. But what when we've isolated these folks underneath Public Works, just again for continuity. Real estate, Heritage Land Bank Real Estate Services, I believe they've really always been tied together, so there's nothing new there. And I'm open for any questions.
And the other thing I would like to mention is during the last budget meeting, Assemblymember Weddleton had asked if there would be a S version in order to reflect the change the Assembly made in the budget relating to the real estate director. The Department of Law is working on an S version, which we hope to have to you. It'll likely be a late on the table item. But the goal is, since there's no director of real estate at this time, Adam is currently acting in that capacity, doing both jobs. And so our intent is to roll real estate into community development as a division. And thus, the effect of that is Adam would continue to do his job as the director of community development and be responsible for the real estate department as well.
I appreciate that. Amy, can I say,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did I cut you off or say a couple more things?
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. The other part I wanted to mention as far as organizing all these underneath one is you would see under the Sullivan administration, under the Berkowitz administration, that you would have that Public Works function completely disassociated and not communicating with the private development building services division. Obviously, in code and in charter, we want to make sure that Amy understands, or the municipal manager understands everything that's going on when it comes to Public Works, because it's so integral to what she does in managing the city. But the fact that I'm over that, and I can provide that proper coordination between development services and Public Works, provides an easy access to flow of work. And again, the reason we've done that is because in the past we've literally required private development to build roads, to build offsite costs, only to come through in a couple years and to tear them all up and to redo them because we're upgrading a road. That's not a very efficient way to, I think it's not efficient, nor is it a fair way to run a city with private development. and vice versa. If we know that a road is going in, we can better allocate those sources. But at the same time, Amy's still understanding what's going on in that flow of work as it goes ultimately up to her. That's all I wanted to say, Amy.
Thank you, Adam. The other department that I wanted to highlight, because I know it's one of interest, it's right here. It's the Parks and Rec department. Again, I want to go back to the whole concept of what we were looking for and how we were trying to align departments. Parks and Recreation, as well as the library, many times in many organizations, historically actually, both are departments typically within the municipal manager's chain of command. In this particular reorganization, in an effort to gain maximum operational alignment and management efficiency, we propose to put the library and under Parks and Rec as a division. And I have Josh Durand, the Director of Parks and Rec, with us today. Josh, can you just say a couple words about the vision here and why the operational alignment we believe will work?
And actually, before we move on, apologies here. I know we have a couple members in the queue, and I should have paused. First, let me note that Mr. Perez-Verdia joined us at 3:24. Mr. Weddleton had put himself in the queue, and then also Mr. Dunbar, who has a question for Mr. Trombley. Do you want to pause before we move forward?
Yep, that's
Sorry
great.
about that, Mr.
No,
Durand.
that's great.
We'll go to Mr. Weddleton and then Mr. Dunbar. Mr. Weddleton?
Yeah, thanks. And I guess I just want to reiterate what Ms. Novosky said. I've had a number of emails back and forth with her staff about how to show a reorganization there. And I think it could be shown by moving that real estate directly under community development, or just note in the budget somewhere that it's a shared position where, you know, Mr. Trombley has both roles, real estate director and his community development. I think it gets us the same place. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Weddleton. Mr. Dunbar?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Adam, I had a question about sort of the aggregate powers and roles of all the people that are now in your department and the sort of descriptions in this ordinance. So, I guess I just want confirmation on something. You know, by their nature, I think reorganization ordinances are a little bit hard to read because you're shifting a lot of text from place to place. And in some cases, text is being deleted or changed. So, for example, the chief equity officer in this organization, obviously that's not under you, but this ordinance actually changes what it does. It deletes part of its description, but in addition to changing where it's going. And so my question for you is, I can see the things that are going under you and going with you. Are any of those roles or the sort of aggregate of all those roles being changed in a way that we should know here?
You mean, is their day-to-day function changing?
No, I mean like
is that what you're asking?
code. No, I mean like legally in the code. Are we changing the descriptions of kind of what these departments do? And I get that there's sort of an amalgamation of different departments and their departments being shifted around. But are there actual like changes in descriptions of what departments do, as opposed to just shifting around the different divisions and departments?
Oh, through the chair, Mr. Dunbar, I understand the question now. The answer would be no. No, they're still doing the daily fund. PM&E is still going to do what PM&E did. The only change I would say that we did make, and again, I'll just reiterate this, is that the traffic department, which is under Public Works, the only change again is that we took, I think, one or two people and we moved them into private development under development services, and that's the only change. So we're not changing anything in code. Is PM&E still going to do what PM&E does? Planning still going to do what planning does all the way through.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, man.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar and Mr. Trombley. I believe Mr. Gates has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. Just to follow up on Mr. Dunbar's question, and I was looking at the ordinance, and I think it's pages 7 through 10 or 11, that we have the descriptions of the code that's being deleted and then code that's being added. And I actually did not look carefully to see wording as changes, but I think that these are the descriptions of duties and responsibilities. And I'm not sure if I heard it from Mr. Trombley or Ms. Dembowski, but are some of these duties and responsibilities or the scope of them changed with this on those pages?
Thank you for the question. I'm going to ask the Department of Law to weigh in. It's my understanding our intent was just to reorganize the government. I'm not familiar with specific changes to duties, but maybe someone from the Department of Law can help me with this answer.
This is Dee. Yeah, this is Dee. I wonder if Jessica, if you can remember, Jessica was the one who did the most work with the actual formatting and drafting of the AO. Certainly the intent was not to change duties, but I don't have a memory, Jessica, whether, do you know, were there clearly areas where duties were changed?
This is Jessica Willoughby. No, Dee, we kept to the original language as much as we could. If there were situations where there is a Scrivener's error in the code, I would change that, but I didn't change anything substantive in the offices that were moved.
Thank you. It appears Mr. Dunbar has a follow-up question.
Thank you. I think that Ms. Willoughby just answered this, but perhaps not. So am I misreading then on page 14? I mean, there's a variety, there's language that's being deleted from, I know that's the wrong page. I thought that there was language that was being deleted from the Chief Equity Officer on page 5. Is that not actually being deleted then? It's just they're referring to a different part of the code. So the Chief Equity Officer role and the EEO role are not changing because of this ordinance. Is that right?
So the changes to the Office of Equity and Justice were organizational. So we see the Office of Equal Opportunity Director, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Compliance are now located elsewhere. And I do believe there is a substantive change insofar as the content subsection A1, B, and C removes language.
Okay,
And
so
then,
so you said the departments that are moving, they're not changing, but there is some substantive change to things like the equity officer.
I'm sorry, say that again.
You had said that the departments that are moving, there's no substantive changes to their role, but there are substantive changes to the Chief Equity Officer and maybe a couple of other things.
Well, I think the change there is that the Chief Equity Officer answers to the mayor. And
Okay.
that,
But the duties and responsibilities from the equity officer are unchanged.
I don't believe, no, they have not changed.
Okay. All right. That was just a misreading of the deletions on my part. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar. So I think now, Ms. Dembowski, we can go to Mr. Durand.
All right, sounds good. All right, Director Durand is he is in charge of Parks and Recreation. And Josh, if you could just talk a little bit about Parks and Recreation and the synergy that we think we can gain by making the library a division within your chain of command.
Sure. Thank you, Amy. I think that there's some real excitement that could be had through shared leadership between the two departments. Really, synergy is a great word. Think about community events and how we can share assets and how we can streamline and make those events happen easier. Take into consideration programming, how we can use both indoor and outdoor spaces with real, actual connections that physically occur. For example, Cuddy Family Midtown Park. The administrative efforts for bringing those two departments to work together to create programming will become more efficient. other things too. You think about learning, you think about books, you think about how that can translate into real world environments, such as our greenhouses out at Rush and Jack, parks, trails, libraries. They're one of our community's great equalizers. Everyone's welcome there. Everyone's equal there. And then some of the expansions that we could do of some success that we found in Parks and Recreation, such as youth employment in parks. Imagine if we started inserting a program like that that was diversified to take on programming seasonal positions within the library. Those are first-time job opportunities. They create future stewards of our public assets. And while developing our youth, the excitement that I have as it relates to this organizational change is the synergy and how it will help Anchorage build a stronger community. And that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Durand. I don't see any members in the queue right now, so Ms. Demboski.
Thank you. And the reason I keep pausing on this particular slide is because this is where you see the biggest amount of change within the organization. It is with the dissolution of the OECD. And I just wanted to just point out to everyone one more time, as we see this, many of these arrows that you see going to the left are traditionally to the left. Again, the contract management for cultural, entertainment, and arts venues, that's the Performing Arts Center, that's the Egan Center, etc. The other is libraries and parks, typically do fall under the municipal manager's chain of command. That would not be changing, but how they work together would be, because we see a real strategic alignment there to leverage the successes of Josh Durand's group and under his leadership. And then, of course, one of the biggest change that we think we will see when we see the Public Works Department and the Building Services Department reporting through Adam Trombley, we do believe that we're going to see significant strides in serving the community, especially those developing within our community, through the Community Development Department. I'm going to move on just to show you one more time. Sorry, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Demboski. Mr. Weddleton has a question.
Well, yeah, I want to just give maybe a little more information on combining parks and libraries or connecting them. You know, the library does a huge amount of events, and through my business, we've been part of it, and it's been really great for many, many years. But it seems to me there's already, they must be working with Parks and Rec, because I see lots of, I don't imagine the library has all those tables and all those pop-up tents that they do for Reading Rendezvous and things like that. So is this kind of they're working together something new, or is that something that's been going on for a while anyway?
Josh, I'll let you take that one.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Weddleton, and through the chair. Yes, we do have that now, but it could be better. And we have had opportunities to partner up on things, and we do share things. But because we don't have this shared leadership, everything has to go through the same process. If just someone from the general public wants to do something in a park, they have to go through this cumbersome ActiveNet approach to make it realized. And if they want to do something together, they would have to go through both entities to make it so. And we would have a real opportunity to streamline that so we could be more efficient and better serve the public.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Weddleton. Thank you, Mr. Durand. Back to you, Ms. Demboski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're not going to believe this, but we actually made it through our presentation, and we are ahead of schedule. So, you know, we're here to answer any questions if assembly members have questions. I was hoping that by showing previous administration's organizational charts and then laying this out in a visual way for everyone, this would be easy to digest, because I know these can be overwhelming. But we just appreciate the opportunity to present and share some of our rationale behind why these recommended changes are being proposed, and we'll just answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Ms. Demboski. And Ms. Ellard said, thanks, Josh, to Mr. Durand. I don't see any members in the queue, so I just have a couple questions. You had mentioned an S version coming, and so my first question is, will there be a C attached to it? And then I've had some questions from folks, from constituents about the new reorganization, and that so many departments will be reporting to you through the municipal manager. And so there's some concern about a potential bottleneck. And if you could speak to how this, and I know you spoke to it in the beginning, but again, just, you know, why this is more efficient to reorganize in this way, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Again, when we look at the charter, ultimately the municipal manager is responsible to the mayor for the administration of government. And I would almost say that's a quote verbatim. I'm doing it off memory, so I might have missed a word or two. But if you look at the chart that I have on the screen, and this, I just picked the last two administrations. I could have gone back a lot further. It's very typical in Anchorage organization to have almost every department, except for the municipal attorney and the CFO report to the municipal manager. And the same was true under the Berkowitz administration. As you can see, the only ones they called out here were just a few. And that's where Chris Schutte used to be in that position. Now, I'm not going back as far as the Sullivan administration. I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button. As you can see, the Sullivan administration, they didn't really have this OECD. And what I have done is I do believe there's a value in pulling out all the development services and the public works, because this is a subject matter expertise and it is unique. And so I think Mr. Trombley has a great sense about those operations. And so when you look at our current operation, which is this one, you can see that is specifically called out as a unique entity. However, the span of control, when we look at operational organization, there's two things that you look for. One is operational workflow. You want like entities that work together, that coordinate together to be closely aligned. And that's what I believe this organizational chart does. The second thing you look for is span of control. You want to make sure that you have a big enough span where you can effectively do the work that you need to do and deconflict issues as they come up through the workflow. But you also want to make sure that you can handle it. You don't want to have one person having 50 different direct reports. And through this organization, we believe we've achieved both. That's the reason. So again, this is how the municipality of Anchorage has organized many times. This particular Bronson organization doesn't have as many direct reports to the municipal manager as previous administrations do, but we think we've struck the right organizational balance between operational controls as well as workflow alignment.
Thank you, Ms. Dembowski. Will there be a C attached to the S version, do you expect?
I actually forgot about that question. Sorry about that. I'd have to go back and look and see if there's any expected economic impacts. We can definitely look to see if there are. I don't know the answer to that yet, but I definitely will get you the S version and I will find out. And as soon as I know, I will give you a note.
Thank you, Ms. Dembowski. I don't see anyone else yet in the queue, so I actually have one more question. And I guess to Mr. Dunbar's point about there's a little bit of difficulty at reading through the narrative just because some things are moved to different places and some things get deleted or rewritten. And there's a section pertaining to the Office of Management and Budget that is in there twice, and perhaps on purpose, but if I could just get some clarification. The first time is under 3.20.052 Office of Management and Budget, and that's item C, that's on page 3. And that item C is also on page 13 as letter E. And it looks like it's still in there and not deleted. So I was just curious as to that.
I think I'd have to have Jessica answer that because I think that's probably a drafting style.
This is Jessica Willoughby. Through the chair, I believe what you're noticing is our attempt to regain some consistency through the code. So the way the code is organized, if I can just open up the title and the chapter, you'll see the higher level offices. Give my computer a moment to load. Are each held out under chapter 320. Office of Management and Budget was not included, which was inconsistent. So by pulling it out, we're simply organizationally making it a little bit more consistent. And then again, those same offices are mentioned again within 3.20.070.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Do other members have any general questions? We've got a couple amendments that we could take a look at. I see a hand up. Mr. Gates, is that you?
Oops, am I muted now?
You're good.
Oh, thank you. And I just wanted to note that I like what Ms. Willoughby said, and it makes sense. And I had actually, I don't know, a year or more, some time ago, I kind of mentally noted that OMB, there was something missing here in chapter 320 about it. I think that fills that gap for me. But I also wanted to speak because you will note in this ordinance that we have the chief fiscal officer and his office. That's in the AO on page, excuse me, it's under the 370 organization, right? And 32070, I had it a minute ago. D, which is on page 11, but what isn't in this ordinance is current code. We have current code, which also has a section about the chief fiscal officer, and it's not being changed or anything. It's section 32050, and that describes the office of the chief fiscal officer in some detail as well. So it's sort of repeated here in 32070D, and I'm just pointing this out because very similarly to what they're doing with the OMB. So, and my point is basically, I don't find this unusual or that it creates a problem, so long as they're not creating some conflicts and inconsistencies when they mention these in the two different places. I didn't note any, but I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. Are there any other member questions or comments? And we do have two amendments. I don't know if Mr. Dunbar, do you want to speak to your amendment?
No, I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. We can talk about it on the floor if we need to.
Okay. And there's a second amendment here from me and also Mr. Constant that restores the code language for the Office of Equity and Justice. I think that's pretty straightforward, but Mr. Gates drafted that and is available for any questions. Do members have any questions or comments? Mr. Gates?
Well, Madam Chair, yeah, I would just follow that to say, although amendment number 2 is a few pages, it's basically just restoring, it's long because of legislative drafting style. It's basically just restoring the Office of Equity and Justice to what it was without the amendments by this proposed ordinance. And so I guess in the handouts too, we have the last page that just shows how the organizational chart will change with Amendment 1 and Amendment 2. And this is sort of like a demonstrative exhibit. So if Amendment 1 passes, Amendment 2 doesn't, that doesn't mean this exhibit's going to change the chart. Well, you know what I mean. But I figured having this visual would be helpful as you go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. Are there any other questions or comments?
There are actually for me.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so not about the amendments, right? I was speaking generally about the overall ordinance. And well, actually, I guess this does relate to amendments. And as we saw when we approved the budget not long ago, there was an amendment that had the language saying that conforming amendments to the budget will be made after the organizational executive reorganization ordinance is passed, this one. So depending on what happens and what the final product is after, it's passed as amended or not amended or whatever, we will see that coming forward. And it's a little bit unpredictable in terms of how much we could say the conforming amendments are needed to the budget and being voted and so forth. But we're sort of, at least me and a few others that discussed it or crossing our fingers that we won't need to come back, but it's possible that a resolution to follow up might be needed in order to, I don't know, make some adjustments that aren't so much, well, I guess let me back up. A conforming amendment might just move, and we got the big one, the big elephant in the room, I think, for everybody is probably the change to the library division, to library department, and then the budget, the way it's organized financially, it wouldn't move over quite so easily as it does in this ordinance for the reorg. So I'm not sure how that will work when we have conforming changes to the budget for the ordinance. And I guess I'm just giving a little forewarning that hopefully after this is done and we get the conforming copy of the budget submitted, that we're all done and everything is aligns and works out from there. But there's a possibility maybe not. We need a little more cleanup. So I'll just say that with tongue in cheek.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. Do members have any other questions or comments? Just pausing to give folks time to unmute if need be. Otherwise, thank you, Ms. Dombosky, Mr. Trombley, Ms. Willoughby, Mr. Gates. And this item will be before the Assembly at Tuesday's December 7th meeting. And I don't see anyone else in the queue. Thank you all for joining, and I hope you have a good weekend. We are adjourned.